Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing again. Believe in a power greater than what you are going through. When you don't know what to do, keep breathing.
That's right. When you don't know what to do, just keep on breathing. From the City of Angels in Los Angeles, welcome to all my listeners out there in Radio Land. I'm Dave, Caregiver's Caregiver at caregiverdave.com, along with my lovely co-host, former mayor of a California beach town and best-selling author, Debbie Peterson. And we're coming to you live and on demand 24/7 on numerous syndicated radio and podcast networks on 30 global audio-video platforms, including iHeartRadio, iTunes, YouTube, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Vimeo, Stitcher Radio, many, many more. We're proud to be voted #1 caregiver podcast out of thousands on TuneSpot and #1 caregiver podcast of the top 50 on Player FM. And we have an especially exciting show planned for you today. Lindsay Barnett, navigating the world of work while caregiving. For the past 20 years, Lindsay's dedicated her career to transforming workplace cultures, leaders, teams, and individuals. She now is an executive coach and HR consultant, hoping to leverage her experience working with Fortune 500 companies and growing startups to help employees and companies thrive, and her insights into the unnecessary suffering being experienced in many organizations inspired her upcoming book, Working Hell to Working Well, Making Your Company Work for You. She hopes her book will help people find more choice and use in their voice to further the conversation about workplace well-being, which is a big topic. Lindsay lives with her family in the LA area, Redondo Beach, I believe, and regularly chauffeurs 2 teens around with just enough time to walk her giant dog, Bodie. And I do want to take this moment to thank my last week's guest, Dr. Colonel Josh McConkey. He's an award-winning, best-selling author and esteemed emergency physician with over 2 decades of clinical experience. And just a reminder, you can watch or listen to that interview and all our interviews on our membership website, caregiverdave.com, or any of our other 30 global audio-video networks that I mentioned earlier. All right, enough of that. Lindsay, so great to have you on the Caregiver Dave Show.
Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here with you both.
The honor is ours. And I always like to ask my guests, just who is Lindsay Barnett and why was she placed on this earth?
Oof, good question.
You can do it.
I think at the end of the day, it's really about helping people feel seen. I think that's one of the things that I really try to do, whether that's, seeing the two of you right now and the beautiful gifts that you bring to the world, or it's, big groups of people where, helping people feel like they're seen, they're heard, and, their gifts can be shared readily.
Yeah, people do need to be seen. They do need to be heard. Otherwise, they feel like they have no mission in life.
Yeah.
Well, Debbie, you have a question for Lindsay?
Yes, as a parent, and I know Dave's a parent as well, of more than me.
Grandparent and great-grandparent.
Lindsay, you pivoted to a part-time schedule to focus on your parenting responsibilities. So what suggestions do you have for other people who want to do that also, or who maybe need to pivot to caregiving?
Yeah, so if it's all right, I'll share a little bit of the story around that as well. But like many parents of young children during the pandemic, I just was thrown for a loop, right? I mean, I was one of the lucky ones. I had an actual office with a door. So when I was working remote, I could go into the office and close the door. But, my husband would say I would just emerge to the family just in a haze, right? Of just been staring at a Zoom screen, the lack of connection with anyone around me other than through this video. And I think I just reached a point where, enough comments from little kids of where are you and you're ignoring me and things like that I just said, I gotta make a change. And fortunately, I was very lucky because my company at the time was starting to come out with some more flexible work arrangements, and there was a part-time one available. And so I put together a whole proposal for my boss at the time and just said, here's all the things that I could possibly do. But I really tried to approach it with a win-win mindset of here's what's good for me, here's why it would be good for the company. And what do you think? Open to negotiation. And thankfully, we figured out a way to make it work. That being said, I was fortunate to have a part-time offering. Not every company has that. And so I would say to parents, there are a lot of different opportunities to find a schedule that could work for you. In my upcoming book, I list out I think 9 different flexible work arrangement options that you may be able to either test out on a temporary basis, see what works. But I think going in with that win-win mindset and a little bit of a spirit of experimentation can really help you find some avenues that could work more for you and your family needs.
Wow.
It sounds like you were very fortunate to have a company that was one of the nicer companies, right?
Yes.
As opposed to the opposite. Well,
Yeah.
what percentage of companies out there do you think, I know maybe you don't even know the answer to this, but how many are considered, open-minded and would work with situations like this? And how many do you think would just, what percentage would just say, my way or the highway, hit the road, Jack?
Yeah, I think a lot. I will have to look that up after this call to see if there is some actual data around part-time work arrangements.
Everyone says there was a survey that said like 85% of workers are not happy in their jobs. So maybe that has something to do with it. That's the song, Take This Job and Shove It.
Yeah,
That was a big hit.
I think I was lucky because I got this gig during the wave of the Great Resignation, where so many people were leaving. Companies were doing everything they could to keep people, whereas right now the pendulum has swung a different direction with layoffs and whatnot. And so a lot of companies are like, back to the office 5 days a week, you don't like it, tough luck. So the pendulum has definitely swung, but I really think it comes down to the relationship you have with your manager. Sure. So that is where, if they look good and you look good and the work gets done, because managers are under tremendous pressure right now too. So really trying to figure out what the needs are for everybody and how you can meet them can be a helpful way of just getting people on board.
One of the things that you talk about is working from home during COVID. And I know that one of the worst parts of that was simply, as you said, no exposure to anybody else. And you just come out in kind of a coma almost. Yeah. And so I'm wondering, are there ways to partner with your colleagues or your superiors to work things out so that you have more people time?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to negotiating, right? And having the courage to negotiate, right? I don't say that, oh yeah, just negotiate. I don't say that lightly. But that is a key skill in finding a way to advocate for yourself, obviously with some flexibility, but it does take some courage to say, hey, I'm planning to work from home on Thursday. Let me know if there's anything I didn't think about, but all this work will get done versus can I work from home on Thursday, right? There's a different nuance there with that element of advocacy in the first example.
And going in with a solution to the problem, not just a problem.
Exactly. So, yeah, I think sometimes just taking that little bit of extra time to think, empathetically, right? What do they need? What do I need? What's that in between that can work for everybody?
Yeah, it's a hot topic right now. Even our government is discovering all the people that still have not returned to work other employees are saying, yeah, they're like doing Zoom calls, they're like going to the spa, they're, when they're working and this and that. So that would make employers kind of thinking, oh, maybe everyone's doing that. And so, yeah, you've got to be very negotiable and confident. And hopefully you've been proving to your boss that you are a valuable asset there and you've been performing. You're not just sitting on your hands,
Yeah.
What options do you see for finding flexibility at work if they feel like they don't have any?
So there are a few different paths that you can take. So, for people in the situation who are caregivers with extreme responsibility for the caregiving, there is intermittent leave of absence. So that is a way of, getting a protected schedule. So there are some options that protect you from a legal perspective. I haven't come across a lot of people who want to take advantage of that for a variety of reasons, but that is available to people. I think the other thing is finding partners. So there's there's the manager path, right? But how do you create also just a supportive core? So who are the people on your team who will say, I got you. I know you got to pick up a sick kid. I got you. Pass it on over. And so, being able to have some allies who can support you as well as partners, right? That, you need some time this day. I'm going to help you the next day. But I think the biggest thing that I discovered, or big aha that I've had as I've been diving into well-being, part-time caregiving, all of these things, is that we have to do it together. We can't wait for the organizations to say, here are the lovely suite of options, and we want everybody to have amazing well-being. And the organizations can't say, hey, individuals, you're responsible, right? It's all on you. We've got to figure out how to work together to make it work for everybody.
And even at a simple level, I owned a gas station for 48 years, just retired, sold it in June.
Yeah.
But the last 3 years has been really good with the employees because I'll put out the schedule for them, and all of a sudden they start changing it. And that used to bother me, but I realized that they're just doing each other favors. Hey, I really want to go to this wedding, and good for them for covering for each other because, what goes around comes around, and they usually can return the favor. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that story. Thank you for sharing that. And how wonderful that you didn't stop them from doing it.
I was tempted, but I didn't. I like control, but I made one condition. I said, do whatever you want after the schedule is it, but keep me in the loop, so that I can know that who's coming in. And sometimes they change it constantly, but as long as they tell me, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
You got another question?
I'm wondering, you talked about in your book, I think 3 Ps to start creating greater balance. Can you tell us a little bit more about the 3 Ps?
Yeah. So I think sometimes people know they want to make a change, but they just get stuck, right? Because usually, especially if you're in a caregiving role, you may be super overwhelmed and you don't have a minute to think for yourself, right? Of what do I want and need? I just have responsibility. And so the 3 Ps stand for planning, pacing, and playing. And so the idea is you can use any of these to just get started. And so to give you an example, planning to me is really actioning your goals, but you can have one really simple goal. So I share a story in my book of a friend of mine who just committed to drinking more water. All she did was buy a bigger water bottle. But she lost weight, she felt better, her skin cleared up. I mean, it's amazing by just taking that one small action and just planning for it. how do I do that, right? How do I action that goal? It's that little step forward, but that small intentional step can really create a big movement. And then with pacing, that is a little bit more around what are some of the needs that are happening both for me physiologically. When you're in an organization, sometimes it's more about what are the needs of the other parts of the business. If I can understand those a little bit better, I might be able to adjust my pacing, because sometimes we just are in a rush to just get something done. And then maybe we didn't have some of the information, and then we have to rework it, and then it ends up being more work. But if you have a little bit of intel from your partners, then you can kind of think, all right, I can do this tomorrow, actually, because they don't need it for a week. So how do I control my own sense of pacing, or just get up and take a walk because I'm feeling antsy, right? So that we can kind of calm the nervous system. And then playing, to me, is just a great option to just bring some playfulness into your day so that you can bring down kind of the temperature on fear of failure, or just that overwhelming sense of responsibility. And I know for me, I just do Wordle and New York Times games at night before bed. And there's just something about it bringing a little bit of play into my day that allows me to just, relax and not take myself so seriously.
Wow.
Also in your book, you described the three energies. Is that like the three Ps, or is it different?
So that's different. I think one of the things that I noticed, at least about myself, is there's common things that fuel our energy, right? There's food, there's sleep, there's exercise, right? Those are very common. Yeah, caffeine. Those are very common. And I think what I found was when I was working, there were some other energies at play, and I call those the three C's. And the first one stands for creative energy. So for me, being in a creative place, whether that's making a funny slide or, coming up with a presentation or a workshop for what I do, there's a tremendous amount of energy that I get from creating. And that could be inside work or outside of work, right? There are a lot of people who write, who paint, who craft, right? But it's another source of nourishment. And then there's connection energy. And connection energy can be connecting with people. It could be connecting with a bigger purpose or the big picture. A lot of my clients, nature is a big source of connection energy for them, where just either going outside or taking a hike allows them to just reconnect with a different kind of energy. And then the last one is completion energy. And so I feel like sometimes when you're working on something that's really big, or you have something that's never ending, being able to complete something is like a little mini adrenaline shot. So I always joke that, like, go do laundry. You have to do it anyway. But if you view it with the reframe of, I'm getting my completion energy, it doesn't just feel like a chore, right? It's like I'm finishing something, and there's a little bit of, satisfaction and energy associated with that completion.
Could you repeat those? There's creativity, and then and completion. What was the middle one?
Connection.
Connection.
So that could be to people, to, a higher power, to nature, but just kind of feeling connected to something more than, just what's in front of you.
What about the people who've got a job and they don't like it, and they've tried all your suggestions, and like talking to a brick wall? Obviously, you would never condone leaving a job before you have another job in your hand. What are some of the strategies that they could be looking for another job while they're still at the job they don't like?
So I am a huge proponent of networking all the time. Whether you're looking for a job or not looking for a job, it's really, really important to keep your network active. And when you have a lot on your plate, it feels like it's one more thing. So to me, that could be finding your way to do that. And networking doesn't need to be this, I'm going to this big event where I'm going to make small talk with, 60 people. Networking to me is calling the person you worked with 5 years ago and saying, hey, it's been a while. I want to grab coffee, right? That's still networking. So finding something that will be joy producing for you still gets the ball rolling. Again, a lot of this is in the spirit of like taking whatever smallest action you can take. Like I'm a big believer in plan D. Like what is like the littlest thing you can do that will still move you forward is great. So I feel like if you think you're not going to leave your job for 6 months, start the conversations now. You can make a goal for yourself. If you're goal oriented, I'm going to have a 30-minute call once a week, once a month, whatever that looks like. And the little trick I would say is start with the people who are super networkers first. Because by meeting and talking with one of them, there's a good chance they've got 100 people they can introduce you to. But if you have 10 people and they have 10 people, you have access to 100 people. So, but it's just taking that little step to be able to start networking.
I like when you say it doesn't have to be a big deal. You could just be sociable, and just talk to other people, talk to your customers, talk to
Yeah.
the company's customers, talk to the company's vendors, talk to fellow employees. Maybe they have a friend who did something, and you just never know. And you're not even trying to network. You're just being friendly and sociable and asking questions and asking about your family or what kind of jobs do they have and stuff like that. No.
Yeah. It's just being part of society.
Earlier, you talked about pacing, and it seemed to me that you were talking a little bit about being present to determine your pacing. How do you do that? How do you notice and begin assessing the trade-offs and the tensions with the needs, the identity, and the values?
Yeah. So maybe I'll start with, needs, identity, values, just to ground a little bit in there. So needs to me are, what do I need to get out of work? And so I have something that I call my big three drivers. So for me, the big needs that get met by working are first, intellectual challenge, feeling like I have an impact, and interaction or adult interaction, because I came up with them when I was a stay-at-home mom. I was like, I need adults. So I call them my three eyes. And so knowing what my needs are helps me navigate, what I should be focused on in and out of work to get those needs met. Identity is a little bit different, right? I'm a mom, I'm a consultant, I'm a coach, I'm a manager, I'm an employee, I'm an aunt, right? Like there's a lot of different aspects of our identities, but identities are a big part of our habit creation, right? So it's hard for me to say I'm a writer if I never write. So some of that is, building out identities for ourselves that are conducive to who we want to be in the world. And then values, I simplify those as these are the core things that we use to make decisions, and they often stay with us over time, right? And they often are part of our upbringing and our background and our experience. But sometimes those may be in tension. So, an example for me is, I have a very strong value of being a really good mom. I also have a need for, feeling recognized for my efforts. those two don't often go hand in hand. It's often rare that I get a thank you from my children. So, so those are intentions. So how do I figure out, how do I spend my time appropriately where I'm getting my needs met, but I'm also meeting my values? And so sometimes that may entail kind of reframing and noticing, okay, they're not saying thank you, but I can tell they want to spend time with me. And maybe that's my version of thank you. Right. But that entails, to your point, Debbie, being present and really noticing.
I'm seeing a theme here. You've got your 3 C's for energy. You got your 3 P's. You
I
got
like threes.
your your P's and a V, trade-off, tension,
Yeah.
identities, of values, etc.
Yeah.
And I guess you have 3 F's too, right?
Three F's.
Fears.
Is that fears?
Oh my gosh, you're right. Gosh, I didn't realize how I really love threes.
Really?
There is something to threes, though. There is definitely,
You can use that, the 3 F's. I give you permission.
Thank you. The 3 F's. So that I actually refer to as my more time now formula. So the idea behind that is there is a story in our head that is basically playing to a fear. And so the first fear is a fear of inadequacy. And that is more is better, right? More ice cream, more clients, more money, right? More is always better. But that fear of inadequacy often leads to certain behaviors that can get in our way, like overperforming, over preparing, that maybe we don't need to be doing. The second one is, I don't have enough time, which is usually I find tied to a fear of failure, right? And so, you don't have time for what? And so sometimes that is connected with, kind of operating to a certain standard, right? And so if you have that certain standard, sometimes it can be, I always have to be excellent, right? And so you're always working so hard to that standard. And then also, you may not ask for help. No one else can help me get to this standard. So that, gets in the way, and it makes us feel like we don't have enough time. And then the third one is now, right? So the story is I must do it now. And that is usually, I find, connected to a fear of rejection. And so when we have a fear of rejection, that may result in our over committing, over responsiveness. And so those are some of the things that I highlight in the book, because if you recognize one of those fears potentially driving some of these behaviors, when you notice it, you can potentially give yourself an opportunity to course correct.
Yeah, fear is a biggie, false evidence appearing real, and this and that.
Yeah.
And, we're almost always motivated by fear in some form. I mean, when you break it all down to the divisible bottom line, it's fear. I'm afraid of doing this, and so we'll mask it as other things.
Yeah.
Debbie, you got anything else?
Well, I wonder if you can tell us again your book, the name of the book, and how we could reach you if we want to follow up.
Yeah. So the name of the book is Working Hell to Working Well, Making Your Company Work for You. And you can find me right now at barnettcoaching.com or on LinkedIn. And there will be a website coming for workinghelltoworkingwell.com coming soon, depending on when you listen to this episode. And I would love to hear from people. And my hope is that this book will help some people, especially people in your audience who are probably doing Herculean efforts, taking care of others, as well as doing what they need to do at work too.
Sounds like a great book. It's a great title, great subtitle.
Thanks.
And, I think any caregiver who cares about a job and happiness in their job needs to buy it. And it's available wherever books are sold, Amazon.
It should be on Amazon, hopefully in the next week or two for pre-sale, and then it should go live in a bit later in the spring, in April.
Kindle, paperback, hardcover, Audible.
Audio, yeah. We'll have
your
it all.
voice.
Yep.
Good for you.
Yeah,
I
thank
recorded my
you.
book with my own voice. It just means so much more when the author's reading it.
Yeah, I know. That's what I like to listen to.
I can't believe how fast our time's gone today. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Last minute, how can did you give us your website again? I think you did, right?
Yeah, barnettcoaching.com. BARNETT coaching.com.
Debbie, how can people reach you, find out what's going on in Grover Beach?
Well, I have an Integrity 101 series on Amazon, and the main book is The Happiest Corruption, Sleaze, Lies, and Suicide in a California Beach Town. And then there's some great how-to books, how to avoid that, that follow on from that. So look for Debbie Peterson, Integrity 101 on Amazon.
Yes, we call her Mayor Debbie. Remember, all our live shows become recorded pod and video casts on all your favorite platforms. My number one best-selling book, It's Your Life Too, How to Survive and Thrive as a Caregiver, is available wherever books are sold, and also on my free membership website, caregiverdave.com, where you can also schedule a free 30-minute initial coaching call, talk about whatever you're struggling with. And if you're on Facebook, join my community of 34,000 caregivers at Caregiver Dave. Lots of tools, resources, videos, this radio show, and much, much more. And if you click the like or follow button on whatever platform you're on right now, it helps Google reach even more caregivers. So again, thanks to all my listeners out there all over the world for tuning in every Wednesday and making us the number one caregiver podcast on the internet. Until next week, same time, same channel. May God richly bless you all. Bye-bye. Thank you, guys.
One Arm, One Leg, 100 Words, Overcoming Unbelievable Hardships is about Charlene, a stroke survivor. Back in 1996, Charlene was a healthy, normal, very active 52-year-old woman whose amazing talents resembled that of both a Martha Stewart and a Wonder Woman. But all that changed when she suffered a massive stroke that left her severely speech impaired and paralyzed on the right side. Who am I? My name is David. I've had the privilege of being Charlene's husband since 1975. We had a wonderful, fairy tale, storybook-like courtship that culminated in our marriage a year later. Charlene had just come out of a marriage where after 10 years, she received 2 black eyes and a broken nose by her former husband when he came home high on speed. Charlene believed in no second chances of any kind for abuse, so she left. Finding herself all alone in the world with her 5 and 10-year-old daughters, Cynthia Lorraine and Deborah Lynn, she started raising them by herself for the next 2 years. Then fate brought us all together. After falling in love with Charlene, Cindy, and Debbie, our love then produced Rebecca Elizabeth. We had a wonderful, normal life for the next 20 years. But today, things are very different for everyone. How about the reaction of 9-time Grammy and Dove Award recipient, the godfather of contemporary gospel Christian music, Andre Crouch? Charlene just won't let the promises of God go, and she has not let her circumstances get in the way of her faith. She's not just a survivor, she's more than a conqueror, as the Bible states. You'll be encouraged by her testimony, regardless of what you're going through. Available everywhere.
Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing.